Well, in Washington this week, developments over the upcoming summit between President Trump and infighting among Republicans over DACA.
Occidental College political science professor Caroline Heldman joins us now to break it all down. Good morning, Professor. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
So let's get to North Korea first, because North Korea is showing signs that it's not going to roll over when it comes to a deal with the U.S. Is this a sign of how hard things might be?
Yes, absolutely. And in fact, Kim Jong-un or North Korea, various leaders have tried to get a U.S. president to sit down and talk one-on-one for 2 decades. And the reason being because it sets up the dictator of a rogue state as being the equivalent of a U.S. president.
Right.
And so Donald Trump kind of waded into this without realizing this long history, I think. So Kim Jong-un has already kind of won in terms of being seen as the equivalent. And in fact, in the past week, just used a standard thing from his playbook, which is where he says, look, we're going to make progress. We'll have these talks. And then at the last minute, he says, no, I'm going to pull out unless you give me these concessions. So he's already put Donald Trump not only in an equivalent position, which is a propaganda coup for him, which is what he sought, but he's also put Donald Trump in a vulnerable position. So what are we going to get out of these talks? I do think that they will happen. I don't believe the bluff here with Kim Jong-un. He's very interested in sitting down with Donald Trump, but at the end of the day, he is definitely not going to give up his nukes because it's such an important part of his military and diplomatic strategy. So at the end of the day, the question is, how much are we going to give away in terms of lifting the tariffs, in terms of maybe aid? We've already given away so much in terms of propaganda and allowing the dictator of a rogue state to look equivalent to a U.S. president. So all the way around, this is kind of a mess right now.
And, one of the sticking points are the regularly scheduled military exercises that the U.S. and South Korea hold. North Korea sees these as provocative, but wouldn't it have made sense to schedule these after the summit as, say, a token gesture?
Well, that's a really good point, Amy, except that Kim Jong-un knew that these were coming. They happen every year. They're not particularly threatening in that regard. And so I think he used this as an opportunity to leverage more from the summit. He used it as an opportunity to get more concessions from Donald Trump. And we indeed capitulated. We said, OK, we're going to do our drill over here instead of in a location that was more threatening or as Kim Jong-un said, was more threatening. Again, I don't believe any of it. I think it is a smoke and mirrors game that he has played and other North Korean leaders have played for many decades. And so all of this was imminently predictable. It is unfolding in a way that experts thought it would. But I think Donald Trump really does not understand how difficult this is, or maybe he's just starting to get the hang of it. A lot of his advisors told him, as did President Obama's, that North Korea will be your Achilles heel. This is not something that is going to be fixed easily. And Donald Trump is learning this the hard way.
And they're still supposed to have that ceremony coming up this week, the 23rd through the 25th in Korea, right? To show that they're denuclearizing some of their zones. So we'll have to see if that actually happens.
Indeed.
Okay, moving back to the home front real quickly, DACA. House Republicans at odds over how to get something done, and this boiled over this week, Professor.
Right, and it's actually infighting within the Republican Party. So to boil it all down, Donald Trump's stance on DACA and rescinding those protections from 800,000 Americans and really 3.5 million dreamers is not in line with what the American public wants. That's the bottom line, because 86% of Americans want protection for these folks. Over 90% of Americans want some path for citizenship, which puts moderate Republicans in a really tough position. And so moderate Republicans right now in the House are forcing a vote or attempting to force a vote on DACA because they're concerned that it's going to affect them in the midterm elections. So they're essentially going against their own party and the president at this point in time. But it's, again, a self-inflicted wound in some sense, because Donald Trump went so far away from what the public wants on this issue. Moderate Republicans are now concerned about what it will do in November. And they're trying to act, meaning they're trying to push a DACA bill out onto the floor, even though the leadership, the Republican leadership, doesn't want to deal with it until after the election.
A lot to see what will happen in the future. Professor Caroline Heldman, thank you so much for taking the time out this morning to give us your insight.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.